Good morning. Today in science, we're going to have our first PowerPoint on evolution. Before you do that, though, you need to watch the Symphony of Science Evolution, the Greatest Show on Earth. That is the video that is on distant learning plans. Okay, then you must open up this video and watch this video. At the same time, go to your Google Slides, though. You will have a copy of this PowerPoint, and you will have to fill in the spaces. Okay? This is to ensure that you are following along with the video. Then you will turn in your copy of Google Slides, and I will return them later so you can use them as your notes to study for the exam at the end. At any time, you can press pause to catch up on your notes. You will see what I mean in a minute. First things first, you have to watch that Symphony of Science video. List 3 things that you learned in the video. Go ahead and press pause, type in the things that you have learned. This can be found in your Google Classroom. You need to do this to get credit for watching this video. Go ahead and press pause and fill in the 3 things you have learned. Okay, now if you're following along in your own Google Slides, we have the overview of evolution. Basically, what is evolution? Before we talk about that, you have to recall a few of the vocabulary words we have already talked about. Species. Species is a group of organisms that can mate with one another to produce fertile offspring. Another thing, there are currently millions of different species around the world. An example would be bacteria. The next is a group of organisms of the same species living in the same place. It's called a population. Over time, many species have lived and died out, and many new species have appeared. Newer species are descended from older species. The process in which populations change over time is called evolution. Over time, a new species can develop. Evidence of evolution. Okay, this is why we have to do it. This is our standard that we're hitting today. Students know how independent lines of evidence from geology, fossils, and comparative anatomy provide the basis for the theory of evolution. Basically, I'm going to tell you, how do we know that evolution exists? We have evidence that evolution exists. Okay? Evidences for evolution fall into 4 main categories. 1, fossils. 2, DNA or proteins. 3, anatomy. And 4, embryology. I'll go over each one of those with you. What can we conclude about this 4 pieces of evidence? Things change over time, and we all came from a common ancestor. Fossil record. Facts. This is a fact. Earth is about 4.6 billion years old. Fact 2. Most of what we know of the history of life comes from fossils. Until we build a time machine, we have to rely on those fossils. 3. Here we go. Let's talk about biological evolution. We said the Earth is about 4.6 billion years old. Life, if you look back on our clock, is about 3.6 to 3.8 billion years ago. That's when life first appeared. Now, if you look on top where it says modern human beings, they appear about 2 seconds before midnight, so that we have hardly even been on this planet compared to how long life has been here. Okay? Okay, here are some fossils that we may have found, or that we have found. You got bone fossils. Sometimes you have imprints. A lot of these are just imprints. We'll go over these. If they're just imprints, they're called traces. If they're actual bones, they're called physical fossils. Fossils are formed after being buried by fine sand, mud, or rock. Usually this is sedimentary rock. Physical evidence of organisms. That means you can actually pick up and touch these things. Bones, tusks, This is tree sap. Everybody remembers the Jurassic Park movie where he found a mosquito. That would have been a piece of physical evidence. Other kind of fossils include trace fossils. Examples would be footprints or leaf imprints. These dinosaur tracks provide information about its gait or its walk. Tells us how big a stride they took, which tells us how big of animal that we might be dealing with. Lucy. She got her name when she was discovered in 1974 and was a complete female adult skeleton. She was 3.5 million years old, and she is the oldest hominid found. Lucy and many other types of evidence help show that this type of species walked on 2 legs, which helped them gather foods and stay away from dangerous animals. Now, as we find fossils, if you look at the rocks, you will find the oldest layers at the bottom, while the newest layers are found at the top. It only makes sense. Think about your laundry basket at home. You put the oldest stuff on the bottom and you find your newest stuff on top. So right here we'll find the newest fossils. Underneath here we will find the oldest fossils. There's not as many fossils to go around as you would think, though. The fossil record is incomplete because 99% of all organisms will decay or be eaten before becoming fossils. There's some evidence of mass extinction in a couple different cases. Mass extinction is when 50% of species are wiped out. This is usually caused by a change in the environment. Perhaps the asteroid hit the planet and caused a huge cloud of dust over the entire Earth, which would kill a great many of the plants, which therefore would kill many of the species. Scientists believe there was 5 great mass extinctions in Earth's history. Missing links. Okay, Darwin predicted that intermediate species yet to be discovered would have traits linking the major groups of organisms. Darwin called these things missing links, and I'll get to that in one moment. We know that evolution exists, and here's an example of a trace fossil. You have an Archaeopteryx, basically a dinosaur, and you can see it has wings or feathers. So what we can conclude from this is modern day birds evolved from dinosaurs, or they shared a common ancestor with the dinosaur. Here are some other animals that you can see that have links between them. You have fish right here. Long time ago, at one time, you probably had a lizard or a salamander or some sort of amphibian. The front fins and rear fins probably were their legs before they went into the sea. Or maybe it started off as a fish and it came out on land and its fins changed into legs. How do we prove this? Once again, you go by their bone structure. This is an example of how a whale has evolved. Okay, you got this land animal over here. Then he probably went to this one. You can see his feet getting to be webbed. Over here you got fins starting to form. Over here he's starting to lose his hind legs because they're no longer needed. And over here on today's whale, you just have front fins. And you're probably saying, Mr. D, there's 2 different animals. Well, there's many different fossils in between. There have been fossils found of this creature, this creature, this creature, and obviously today's living creature right there. Also, if you look inside today's creature, this is a whale. You will see a pelvic bone. Also, it doesn't show it, but there are rear hind leg bones. They're still inside the whale, the hind leg bones, And they're not as small as they used to be. They're getting smaller. And they're no longer used. But they're still there. You can see it. So this is an example of how this whale has evolved over time. Went from a land creature to now a sea creature. Evidence 2, anatomy. Let's look at this. You have similar bone structure between animal species. If you look, you remember when we were talking about our skeleton, we had one big bone up top, that was the humerus, and we had the radius and ulna, and many different phalange bones down here. You have the same structure as the cat, as in the bat, as in the porpoise, and in the horse. You still have like the one long bone, two small bones, and multiple phalange bones. They're shaped a little bit different, but they're similar in structure, as you can see. Homologous structures. Structures that are similar, but they function differently. Okay, here we have the human hand. It's very similar to all these, but their function is different. Cats are made to walk on their forearms, and while whales are used as a fin, and bats obviously fly with theirs. Homologous structures are the same, but their function is different. Vestigial structures, structure that is there, but it has no function. Whale pelvis, it's there, not serving a purpose though. You have some humans have vestigial structures in their bodies as well. Tonsils, they're there, no purpose. Appendix, they're there, no purpose. We have a tailbone, it's there, but it serves no purpose. Why is it there? Well, evolution. At one time, it might have served a purpose. As we evolve, some of the structures in our body are no longer necessary. Evidence 3, DNA. Organisms change over time because their DNA changes or mutates. The more like the DNA, the more closely related species are. Here we go. We got all these species. The closer they are together, the more closely related you are. You would find humans up here. Now, at no time am I telling you that we have evolved from apes. At no time am I saying that. I'm saying at one particular point in time, we have shared a common ancestor. DNA codes for proteins. We can compare proteins of different organisms. If you count the number of amino acids between the organisms, the less difference in the amino acids, the more closely related you are. So which animal is more closely related to humans? Well, you look at this. Gorilla has 1 amino acid difference. Monkey, 8. Mouse, 27, 45, 67, 125. The gorilla would be more closely related. And again, I'm telling you, we did not evolve from apes, monkeys, whatever. I am just telling you that we have shared a common ancestor somewhere in our past. Evidence 4 is embryology. Development of embryos is similar in different species. Evidence that we've had a common ancestor. If you compare embryos to fish, tortoise, chicken, rabbit, and humans, you can see the similarities in the embryos. They are later removed or developed into other structures. Okay? Gill slits may disappear later in the embryo. The tail disappears later, obviously, in humans. However, they all pretty much start out the same. In early embryology, humans have gill slits as well as tails. But they do change as the embryo grows and matures. So that's what I got for today's lesson on evolution. Make sure you copy or make sure you submit your Google Slides in your Google Classroom. Thank you for listening.